morning and good afternoon if you're coming from the East Coast. My name is Van Top Park, and I am faculty at UCSF in the Department of Community Health Systems. I'm also the principal investigator for CARE. So I'm happy to have you guys join us. If you can, in the interest of time, I don't know how many people are here, put your name and title, organization, or affiliation in the chat box. It's always nice to see where, and maybe even where, if it's not obvious, where you're located, just so we can get a feel for where everyone is joining us from. Okay, next slide, please. So the agenda for today, you can see here, I'm just going to give a brief overview. I mean, not overview, but a welcome. And Dr. Alka Kanaya from UCSF, who's a co-investigator, will talk about CARE and what it's about. And then Dr. Josh Grill from UC Irvine, another co-investigator, will talk about how to use CARE. And then what's really important is we have a community collaborator from NAPCA, National Asian Pacific Center on Aging, Heather Chun, will be talking about community perspectives in research and NAPCA's partnership with CARE. And we will have Q&A and raffles also for those who stay till the end. And we'll also have evaluation, or we'll give a reminder about evaluation and so forth. And so before we start, if I can ask Alka, Josh, and Heather to introduce themselves. Alka?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alka Kanaya, and I'm a professor of medicine and epidemiology and biostatistics at UC San Francisco.
And I'm Josh Grill. I'm a professor of psychiatry and neurobiology and behavior at UC Irvine and a proud member of the CARE team.
And I'm Heather Chun. I'm the Senior Director of Aging Programs and Partnerships at NAPCA.
Thank you. And then I know that we have a couple of other co-investigators and team members here. I can't see everyone on my screen, so forgive me if I don't call you out. If I don't call you out, please introduce yourself. But I know Janice is here and Wayne and so forth, and we can also have some staff introduce themselves. Janice and Wayne.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Janice So. I'm a professor in UCSF, Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, and also part of the CARE team. So welcome, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wayne Meyer. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Neurology at UC Davis and also a co-investigator on the CARE team.
Thank you, Janice and Wayne. Marion, Bora, Micah, Nicole, do you want to intro yourself?
Sure, I'll say hi real quick. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Marion John. I'm a research analyst working with a wonderful group of colleagues here at UCSF. Any questions you have about CARE, please feel free to email any one of our staff here.
Hello, I'm Bora Nam. I'm also a research analyst at UCSF. Nice meeting you all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Micah Lay. I am also a research analyst with CARE. Please feel free to message us with any questions you may have, and thank you all for coming.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm also another research analyst with the CARE Registry. Really glad to have you all here today.
Great, thank you. So why don't we get started? Next slide, please. So the next couple slides are probably things that a lot of you might already know about or are already, aware about, but just in case, I just wanted to, we wanted to go over some important information that really help us pursue care. So Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, as we all know, are very heterogeneous, and they comprise 7.7% of the population. And you can see here, I just want to point out the graph on to the right. And one of the things that there's diversity in is certainly English proficiency. And there's wide range of English proficiency by Asian American and Pacific Islander subgroup. And so, and you can see here, for example, Vietnamese, Korean, Cambodian, Chinese, they have really high proportion of limited English proficient speakers. And so one of the things that we realized prior to pursuing care or grant funding to support care is that we have to be able to outreach to people in different languages and speak to them in not just speaking, but in writing as well about what research is and why it's important and so forth. So so as we all know, there's just diversity in backgrounds and other things that we have to consider in our outreach. Next slide, please. Okay. We probably have seen this really seminal paper that looked at clinical research projects funded by the National Institutes of Health in the past 25 plus years. And what the authors have found is that less than 1% of the NIH's total budget, and actually it's really 0.17% of their total budget has been focused on Asian American and Pacific Islander participants or research. So I don't think I need to go into a dialogue about why this is so terrible and disappointing. And and then another statistic or data is that of the more than 44,000 participants who have been enrolled in Alzheimer's disease and related dementia studies as part of the Alzheimer's disease research centers in the US, less than 3% were also identified as AAPI. And I would also say, and Josh can correct me if I'm wrong, that majority are English speaking AAPI. So we all know that there are challenges to recruitment for Asian American and Pacific Islanders, including cultural differences, linguistic limitations, as I just talked about, and also a lack of outreach and education in regards to what research is and what to expect in research. Next slide, please. So I believe this is my last slide. When we came up with CARE, we really thought about how we can improve on the research participation of our communities of AAPIs. And we really wanted to address the gap and reduce disparities in research participation, particularly in Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, EDRD, aging, caregiving, and other health issues across the lifespan among AAPI. And this is largely one of the reasons is because the funding mechanism we pursued is a National Institute on Aging funding mechanism. So CARE sought out to implement culturally appropriate and innovative recruitment strategies with our community partners, and Alka will go into that. And our goal is to enroll at least 10,000 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and to help give our communities, our diverse communities, a voice in research and an opportunity to participate in future research through the enrollment of the CARE Registry. Next slide. Okay, so I hand it off to Alka.
Thanks, Nan. So my goal is to kind of give you an overview of what we've accomplished so far with the CARE Registry. Next slide, please. So CARE is a multi-site, multi-center collaboration that is being organized again with this NIA grant, National Institutes of Aging grant, and UCSF is the primary grantee, and we have many, many other organizations that are our partners, including UC Davis Health, UC Irvine Mind, and two primary community partners, ICANN and NAPCA. And these we meet almost every 2 weeks to discuss, how care is going, other ways to outreach, other ways to have people use our registry. Next slide. And so here's just a snapshot of the different logos from all of our various different partners and community advisors. And there's a photo of our community advisory board as well. So we have a lot of reach, more in California, and we are trying to actually expand reach when possible to other states because CARE does take participation from AAPI all across the United States. And so just want to show you, we have at least 20 partners shown with the diverse logos here, and we're always looking for more. So please do contact us if you are wanting to partner with us to help us get more participants enrolled in the CARE registry. Next slide, please. So who can enroll in our registry? We have very simple inclusion criteria. A person needs to self-identify as Asian American or Pacific Islander, very broadly. They need to be an adult, so anyone 18 years or older. We do try to target an older population of 50 years and older, but anyone in the adult age range is eligible. We put special outreach into the age 50 and above because, again, we are interested in people who would participate in studies on caregiving, aging, Alzheimer's disease related dementia types of projects, and our funder is the National Institute of Aging. So we are trying to get people in the older age groups more represented in the registry. They need to be able to speak and or read English, Chinese, Hindi, Korean, Vietnamese, or Samoan. So we have several different language needs that we have tried to address with this registry, and they need to be interested in participating in research in the future. And so that's why they're putting their name into this registry. So we try to both assess their language needs as well as their interest in participating in potential research. And on average, it takes this online survey that we have them fill out, takes anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. It can be done online for anyone who has, website capabilities, or we have community partners who help participants enroll by phone or in person. They can help them go through the enrollment process in person as well. So we do have phone numbers for people who want to speak with someone in language to be able to complete the survey. We have translated this survey now into 6 languages, and we are hoping to be able to reach many different segments of the community with this type of accessibility. So after someone completes their survey, we send them a $10 gift card as just a small token of our appreciation, and thanks for enrolling. Next slide, please. So some of the survey questions we do are basically, you can put them in 4 buckets. There's some socio-demographic information, where were you born, tell us about your language needs, and then there's a few questions on health conditions that they may have, and we ask kind of broad range of health related diagnoses, neurological diseases, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, cancer, mood-related disease, etc. And these are important for us to assess because you can imagine, we're trying to matchmake people in the registry with future studies, and studies may be, wanting to recruit people with certain diagnoses. And so we also have a few questions on health behaviors, focusing on smoking, physical activity, and just a very few questions about diet, because as we know, it's very hard to assess diet across so many different cultural groups with questionnaires. And then we do ask a few questions about their caregiving experience, if they are caregivers for any age person, and what types of care they may be giving and what type of needs the care recipient may have. And again, this is important again for matchmaking with future studies. Go ahead to the next slide, please. And so as of 2 weeks ago, February 13th, we have now enrolled over 7,500 participants in CARE, and the graph shows you in the blue line the actual cumulative accrual. So our goal is to get to 10,000, and we are 3/4 of the way there, which is super exciting. We've had kind of a lull in recruitment over the winter months as expected with the holidays, but we're kind of picking up steam again now. So we're hoping that we will get to our 10,000 person goal by May, at the end of May, in a few months. Next slide, please. And so who is in CARE? Of the 7,615 people we've enrolled, a majority, 85%, were born outside of the United States, so mostly immigrants. 88% are from California, and that's really because when CARE was initiated, we really focused on California. That's what we wrote into the grant, but as we've gotten more experience, we understand the value of being more inclusive of any person who wants to be in studies living across the United States. So we haven't put in a lot of effort to get new community partners because we don't have the funding to do that right now, but we are always open to having partners who want to work with us. 11% of our CARE enrollees are caregivers of older adults or people with special needs. And then this graph on the bottom shows you the different cultural groups that we have represented in CARE. So we have almost 37% of our CARE enrollees are Vietnamese, another 33% are ethnic Chinese, and then you see 17% Korean, and the numbers kind of vary with the other groups. The mean age of our participants is 53, and the range again is anyone over 18 can participate. So we have a range from 18 to 99 years as the oldest participant. We have about 32% are age over 65 years. And we have kind of a little bit of a difference in the gender breakdown. About 63% are women and 35% male in the registry. And about 60% have limited English proficiency. And this is important because these are people we also are, really trying to include in research going forward, because they have had, these populations have had no voice in most health research in the United States. 11% self-report having some symptoms of Alzheimer's related or other related dementias. And you can see it at the pie graph below that about 47% are English speakers, and then the next most commonly spoken language was Vietnamese, followed by Korean, and then standard Chinese. Next slide, please. And so this just gives you kind of more of a breakdown of the people in the registry by ethnic group, and also if they self-reported ADRD or were caregivers of people with ADRD. And those who self-report ADRD, a majority were Vietnamese. That's just because a majority of Vietnamese are represented in this registry. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Josh Grill.
Thanks, Alka. So I recognize some investigator names in the attendee list. So I know this next section is important to at least some of our attendees today, and that's how to use this incredible resource that Van and Alka and the team have created. So briefly, next slide. What I'm going to try to do is talk about ways to use CARE. And this is going to kind of focus on a few different aspects that we think CARE can bring value to investigators' work in the field. So I'll walk through each of these, but one can imagine using CARE as your laboratory to conduct a study, using CARE to support your study at your own institution, and achieving really the mission of CARE to increase the diversity and inclusivity of studies so that they better include AAPI in what we're learning about aging and age-related diseases. So I'll walk through these quickly. Next slide. So first, it's easy to imagine an investigator developing a study where they want to answer a question about all or a subset of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And they might approach this by developing a survey or some other method of data collection that could be implemented within CARE. As you heard, CARE is large and wonderfully diverse, inclusive of numerous subpopulations of AAPI. And so an investigator could imagine trying to simply answer a question using CARE as the source of data collection by developing a registry and then disseminating it through CARE. The steps for this would be straightforward, and I'll walk through other steps more operationally in a moment, but you would start by reaching out to CARE and talking about this idea with the leadership of CARE. Next slide. Alternatively, oh, sorry, forgot about this. So what might this look like? You have a question that can be developed experimentally to be answered through a survey design. This might focus on a specific subset of registrants in CARE based on their age or their ethnic background or some other independent variable. And then you could use CARE as a means to disseminate the data collection instrument for your scientific question and then analyze that data accordingly. So I think that this is a remarkable tool that's now available to the field to try to relatively quickly and certainly in larger sample size answer questions like these. Next slide. Alternatively, and probably more in line with the expected and traditional use of registries as a tool to support science, is the idea that CARE could be a source of participants you recruit to your study at your institution. There are a number of national registries. Many sites have local registries, but in general, these registries often lack diversity and in particular lack representation of AAPI participants. And so recruiting from CARE could be a way to ensure that the AAPI voice is heard in your study, or you could do, in theory, a study of AAPIs by recruiting directly from CARE. And I'll tell you about some studies that have tried to do that. These, again, there's a diversity of opportunities here. You could try to answer a question about AAPI specifically, recruiting only AAPIs into your study and comparing AAPI groups or comparing some other aspect of those groups. You may be doing a larger study focused on older individuals, and it may be important to simply increase the representation of AAPI in your study. Maybe that study is recruiting locally from your clinics, from your own community, but you want to make sure that AAPIs are represented. CARE could be a good source of participants for you as well. Next slide. So what might this look like? You may be doing a larger randomized study, trying to understand some unique aspect of aging or age-related disease. This example is from the types of studies that I've done in the past where CARE would have been an outstanding resource for us. We've done interview studies to try to understand the specific implications of unique aspects of clinical trial design. And typically we've done traditional grassroots recruitment into those studies. But having an opportunity to recruit from CARE could have enhanced the diversity of our samples and would have accelerated our timeline to completing accrual in those studies. The randomized design may be important because we know that recruitment is a source of bias. And so having a randomized approach ensures that the recruitment bias is minimized in its impact on results. And this is something that we do frequently in our own studies, which often recruit from local registries, national registries like CARE. But basically, the notion here is that there's a a very large repository of individuals who may be available for you to recruit to your study with permission from care leadership. Next slide. So caveats that should be addressed are that care is not a community-based or epidemiological cohort. You can't study care and conclude that you have generated knowledge that is necessarily generalizable to all AAPI in the United States or beyond. The sample size of care gives it incredible power and the opportunities to learn about these unique communities, cultural groups, et cetera, is in many ways unrivaled today. But I think we also need to be clear about what care is. It has been largely recruited through, as you heard, partnerships with community-based organizations, and it is still a convenient sample, a remarkable resource to be sure, but not a population-based study. So those scientific approaches to ensuring that you're answering your question in as unbiased a way as possible will be important for you to consider. But clearly, the value of having AAPI represented in your study outweighs their lack of inclusion. These costs, in my mind, are well worth undertaking. Next slide. So how do you actually go about trying to recruit from care? There are some very straightforward, easily accomplished steps for you to seek out the opportunity to recruit from care. This begins by submitting a request form on the care website as an investigator. This will give the leadership of care opportunity to evaluate the goals of your study, your needs and desires for recruitment, and the alignment with the mission of care. It also creates an opportunity for brief consultations when necessary, which is the second step of the recruitment process. CARE has a number of very well qualified, very driven investigators associated with it who will be eager to help you succeed in your study and ensure that your study includes the voice of AAPI. So this is done on a case-by-case basis before finalization of a care referral request form that can be then evaluated by the leadership, approved, and permit you to then recruit participants from the care registry. Next slide. If necessary, as a next step then, your team, your study team would receive information about individuals who can be recruited from care. It's well described in the care informed consent that the individuals enrolled in care will have their information shared with investigators for recruiting them. This introduces some key and critical responsibilities of the investigator recruiting from care. First, you have to document that care has been included as a source of participants for your study. And then in order for us to understand whether care is achieving its goals, we will need information back from you about how recruitment went for those individuals who were delivered to your study team to be recruited to your study. There are timelines outlined in documents that share these responsibilities with you and your team. And we similarly expect that you would want to acknowledge the support CARE gave to your important work when publishing manuscripts describing that work. So these are all documents that are clearly, these are all obligations and expectations that are clearly outlined in communications from the CARE team. And really, I think, represent a minimally burdensome aspect of this remarkable resource for your study. Next slide. So these forms and documents can be readily downloaded at the Care Registry website, linked here and outlined here. Again, you can also email the people who you received communication about today's Brain Trust meeting to request a consultation meeting. I think that it's abundantly apparent that the multidisciplinary team running care is utterly and convincingly committed to the mission of increasing AAPI representation across a broad swath of types of research focused on aging, caregiving, and age-related diseases. And that is illustrated in the last slide, which is a summary of the number of studies and the locations of those studies and the types of studies that have recruited from CARE to date. So again, I think this is very impressive. CARE is only in its third year. It started from a sample size of 0 and now has more than 7,000. And it has helped more than 30 different investigators' studies try to increase AAPI representation. You can see that our Northern California colleagues are dominating, are successfully leading the way in utilizing CARE as a resource. We in Southern California, and I recognize some Southern California investigators on the attendee list, so we have work to do to catch up, but we will do that and try to recruit from CARE as we move forward. But you can see too that California, though has the most requests of CARE participants, CARE has been broad and inclusive in the investigators that it's helping as well. And so there are folks on the East Coast and throughout the rest of the country that have now learned about CARE and have begun using it as a resource. And that's really the purpose of these brain trust meetings. We really are trying hard, and really I have to commend Vanta Park for her leadership in this regard, speaking at national and international meetings about CARE as a tool to help investigators do better. And so we're heartened to see this list grow, and we hope to see this list grow further, and we hope that you will tell others about CARE as a resource. You can see too that there's a broad swath of types of research, including the expected caregiving and dementia-related research, but also several other types of studies beyond Alzheimer's disease that have included things like cardiovascular health, reproductive health, and more. So this is very exciting to us to see this heterogeneous types of studies that are utilizing CARE as a resource. So I'm going to now turn it over to Heather Chun, who's going to talk about the perspective of a community partner.
Thanks, Josh. Next slide, please. So I'm excited to be here with all of you as one of the community partners within CARE. NAPCA is a big source of recruitment. So we are a national organization dedicated to improving the quality of life and well-being of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders as they age. So a really enriching research project to be a part of, with the focus on aging and a lot of the issue areas that we're observing within the communities that we represent. So like I mentioned, NAPCA is one of the community partners supporting the registry's recruitment. And that really comes together with our call center, which is the source for in-language enrollment support for the registry. And also we work with a variety of different community-based organizations around the country who are our partners to help us build, to recruit within at a community level. And CBOs are really the epicenter for research engagement of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders, especially for older adults, because a lot of older adults prefer that support in person. Recruitment through CBOs often relies on the trust that's already been established with those CBOs, and really leads to meaningful inclusion, and is really a culturally appropriate way to engage the communities that are being represented through the registry. And doing that, we enable language access, which everybody here has been talking quite a bit about, and you can see that reflected in the participation of the registry thus far, with such a high percentage of limited English proficient folks enrolled thus far. But also what's more is by doing that, the staff reflect the communities that are being targeted for recruitment. And that often means that they have a strong desire to build representation of their own community within that research. And that's definitely something that we see within our call center. Our staff, although really they provide that, the recruitment comes to them. They're not necessarily outreaching themselves. They're making the calls to follow up on folks that are interested in registering and just walking them through that application. But they're really invested in the research. And so we're often hearing of them telling members of their church or their families that about CARE and bringing those personal connections back to the registry. And we know that that's happening within our CBO partnerships as well. So what is the ROI for a community partner? This research really supports our strategic growth. The fact that CARE is so focused on engaging primarily older adults with a lot of challenges that I said before, that we observe within the communities that we're serving. This research really directly ties back to the services and supports and advocacy efforts that we're developing at NAPCA and I'm sure other community partners as well. So we appreciate the opportunity to be involved, to help find new methods to recruit and bring communities across the country into CARE and look forward to seeing it grow. Thank you. Kick it back to you, Van, I think.
Thank you. So now we have time for some questions. And just as a friendly reminder, if you can please complete a very brief evaluation survey about this presentation, it'll be really helpful to us. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I will see you next time. Bye.